Good morning. I'm Laura Affelbeck from the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension's FoodWise program. And today we're going to be talking about Goldilocks and the Three Bears, which I think some of you may be familiar with. I'm hoping some of you read the original story or maybe tuned in to listen to the Storytime read aloud of Goldilocks and the Three Bears last week. Well, if you remember, Goldilocks is on a little journey through the forest and she starts feeling hungry, and right in front of her is a house. And what does she do? She goes in the house. Now, I'm going to guess that your parents or guardians or people who love you would tell you, even if you're hungry in the forest, you usually don't walk into somebody's house. But in addition to that, she also, when she's in there, she eats their food. Do you remember that? She eats their food. She eats the porridge that's on the table. Do you guys remember what porridge is? I bet you somebody told you. I hope somebody told you while you were reading this story. Porridge is kind of like a hot cereal made with grains, like oatmeal. Maybe some of you eat cream of wheat or oatmeal. It's a hot cereal made with a grain. So the story we're going to read today is similar to Goldilocks and the Three Bears, as you may have read it already, but it's got a few twists and turns. And one of the twists and turns is that they call porridge oatmeal. So they kind of made it a little bit more modern. So we're going to talk about why that is. In this poster shows you My Plate, which is a pattern for healthy eating. And on the My Plate, you can see you're supposed to, at your meals, have about a quarter of your plate be fruits, about another section could be vegetables, and another section should be grains, another section should be protein, and then you need some dairy, like maybe milk or yogurt. The oatmeal or the porridge fits into that category, grains. So what are grains? Well, it shows you some pictures, and we're going to take a peek here and see. It says make at least half your plate whole grains. And they show you all sorts of pictures of other grains, because we do have a lot of grain choices. And grains are the plants like this that have little seeds, and we are eating the seeds. We eat lots of seeds. Some of us might eat sesame seeds or other seeds, but in this case, we're eating the seeds of wheat if we eat bread, or we might be eating the seeds of oats if we're eating oatmeal. So it shows you a picture, and it shows you that that is the grains portion of My Plate. Well, why are we supposed to bake half our plate whole grains? Well, it's because whole grains that term means that we're eating the whole thing, not just parts of the grain, but the whole grain. That includes the outside part, which has fiber, which is good for our bodies, the inside part that has starch, which is also good for our bodies, and the best part, which is called the germ, sometimes called the heart of the seed. And that's where most of the nutrients are. That's where the vitamins are and the minerals. Most of them are in there, and it's really, really good for your body. And oatmeal is a whole grain. So it was a very good choice. So today's story is going to be a little bit of a twist and turn from the Goldilocks story you've read before. I'm going to read it to you. It's also called Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but there are some changes, and we'll kind of talk about them as we go. It begins once upon a time, like a lot of stories do. Once upon a time, there was a family of bears who lived in an enchanted forest. In this happy family, there was a papa bear, a mama bear, and a baby bear. Now that part sounds familiar, doesn't it? Every morning, the bear family begins their day by eating a healthy breakfast together at their kitchen table. After all, everyone knows that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. One sunny day, after the three bears enjoyed their delicious breakfast of oatmeal and banana slices and a nice tall glass of cold milk, wow, that's a little different, isn't it? They added some things, some bananas and some milk. Good choices. Well, after they finished their breakfast, they decided to go for a walk together and enjoy the beautiful weather. On this day, the bears were so anxious to begin their walk together that they completely forgot to clean up after themselves. You ever do that? I do that sometimes. So their entire kitchen was a mess. The bowls of oatmeal were still setting out at their place settings. The banana slices were left uncovered on the table, and the milk carton also remained on the table. Your parents ever talk to you about putting the milk away after you have a glass of milk? There's probably a reason for that. Anyway, 2 hours passed by and the bears had still not returned home from their walk. A little girl named, you guessed it, Goldilocks, happened to stumble upon the bears' home in the forest. She knocked, and when no one answered, she walked right in. Well, as she entered the kitchen, she could see the morning's breakfast on the table. And even though she could tell the food had been sitting out for a long time, without being refrigerated or covered up, she was very, very hungry, and she decided to taste the food anyway. Aww. Would you eat food that had been setting out on the table for a long time, especially milk, or something that's supposed to be hot, like oatmeal? Well, she decided to take a few bites out of each dish. The Papa Bear's oatmeal was too sticky and chewy. Mama Bear's bowl had banana slices in it, but they were all brown. And Baby Bear had a glass of milk sitting there, but it was also warm. Well, she decided to eat it anyway, and after she'd eaten the Baby Bear's breakfast and some of the Mama Bear's breakfast and some of the Papa Bear's breakfast, she was feeling tired, so she went upstairs to the bedroom. She lay down on the first bed, but it was too hard. And then she lay down on the second bed, and it was too soft. Finally, she lay down on the third bed, and it was just right. Well, soon after lying down, Goldilocks didn't feel very well. Her whole body began to feel very warm, and she tossed and she turned, but she couldn't get comfortable, and her whole body ached. Her stomach began to grumble and churn, and suddenly, she started to throw up. She was lying on the bed, feeling very green, and the bears came home. As soon as they entered the house, Mama Bear exclaimed, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe we forgot to clean up our mess from the breakfast. This food has been sitting out for more than 2 hours. I'll have to make sure to throw it away so that none of us get sick." After the family looked closely, Papa Bear noticed, "I think someone's been eating my oatmeal." Mama Bear said, "I think someone's been eating my bananas." And Baby Bear said, "Someone's been drinking my milk." They decided to look around some more, and when they got upstairs to the bedroom, Papa Bear growled, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed." Mama Bear said, "Someone's been sleeping in my bed too." "Oh," Baby Bear said, "someone is sleeping in my bed, and she looks sick." Just then, Goldilocks looked up and saw the three bears. She told them about how hungry she was and that she had decided to eat the rest of their breakfast. She also explained that once she ate it, she got very sick. Mama and Papa Bear explained to Goldilocks that she got sick because food had been sitting out for more than 2 hours. Goldilocks had a foodborne illness. A foodborne illness happens when people eat food that's not heated or refrigerated properly. And let's think about that. We had the oatmeal on the table, And oatmeal is usually eaten when it's hot. And Goldilocks ate that oatmeal after it had been setting out on the table for quite a long time. And then she drank the milk that had been setting out on the table for quite a long time. And then she ate the banana slices that had been sitting out on the table for quite a long time. So all of those foods, during the time that the bears were out for a walk, those foods are growing bacteria. And bacteria doubles about every 20 minutes. So 2 hours later, there could be a lot of bacteria, and that's why she got sick. Sometimes people can get a foodborne illness if their meat is not cooked long enough. Or they can get a foodborne illness if they eat things like warm ice cream that's been setting out on a table for too long. Ew, who would even want to eat warm ice cream? Well, when food has been setting out for 2 hours or more, invisible germs begin to grow. And if we eat those germs, we can get sick. We could get a headache. Our stomach could feel queasy. So just because the food looks okay, and just because the food smells okay, doesn't mean the food is okay. It can still be bad for us to eat. To make sure that no one gets sick or gets a foodborne illness, it's always very important to make sure that the food is heated and refrigerated properly. Never eat a food that's been setting out for more than 2 hours if it's supposed to be hot or supposed to be kept cold. It's always essential to ask a responsible adult to let you know if that food is okay. Because surely we keep apples or maybe a whole banana out on the counter sometimes, and those are okay. But if you cut it up, sometimes it starts to turn brown, and that tells you that maybe it's old and you shouldn't eat it. So you have to ask and make sure it's okay. Well, let's go back and find out what happened to Miss Goldilocks. Well, after resting all day and night at the Bear family home, Goldilocks thanked them for taking care of her. Now, she is very careful never to try food that's not been heated or refrigerated properly, and she never even tastes anything that's been setting out for a long time. The Bear family is also sure to clean up after themselves after each meal and make sure that their leftovers are stored in the refrigerator safely. The end. Now, there were some pretty significant differences between that story and the original story. Can you think of some of the ways that they were different? We talked about in the original Goldilocks story, they called the food that the bears were eating, they called it porridge. And in this story, they called it oatmeal. And in the original story, what else was changed? Maybe did we talk about the glass of milk? That might have been a change. It might also have been a change, I think a pretty big one, that Goldilocks got sick in this story. But you could think about other ways to change that story too. So for example, we just mentioned a little bit that maybe Goldilocks shouldn't have gone into that house just because she was hungry or tired. What could have happened if she went into somebody's house? You could imagine that and you could tell your own story. You could also use 3 teddy bears and maybe some kind of a doll to act out the story, and that would be kind of fun. One of the things to think about with Goldilocks and the 3 bears too is what makes food safe to eat? What are some food safety things that we can think about to make sure we don't get sick like Goldilocks does? Because nobody wants to throw up and feel awful. Well, the first and most important thing is, what can we do to make sure? What can we do with these to make sure that we don't get sick? We can wash our hands, right? And you've probably studied sometime. Somebody has shown you how you're supposed to wash your hands. And you're supposed to wash your hands by getting them wet under the water and then putting some soap and making sure you scrub. Sometimes people even have a little brush and they scrub under their fingernails. And how long are you supposed to wash your hands? You're rubbing and scrubbing with the soap. Then what? Sometimes people sing the ABC song. Do you sing that sometimes so you know how long you're supposed to be washing your hands? Or some people sing the happy birthday song, and that can work too. But about 20 seconds, and if you sang the ABC song thoroughly, you probably would hit 20 seconds with that song. So when you're all done singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z, then what do? You just got soap all over your hands. Probably going to have to rinse, right? Rinse it under the water, warm water, rinsing, rinsing, rinsing. And then what? Don't do this. No, don't do that. Use a towel. It can be a paper towel or a clean bath towel, or dry your hands, because drying helps remove some of the germs too. And you want to wash your hands when? When do you wash your hands? Well, certainly before you eat, right? Because if you've been playing with your dog or your cat or outside, you have stuff on your hands that you can't see, but it still is germs on your hands. So you want to make sure they're clean. Or if you're going to help make the food, you certainly want to wash your hands. And you certainly want to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom or after you blow your nose, because you're going to have germs on your hands and you can't see them, but they can still make you sick. So those are very important times to wash your hands. So that's one of the most important food safety things you can do, is make sure you wash your hands. And the other things you can do is make sure you keep the cold foods cold in the refrigerator, and you keep the hot foods hot. And as soon as people are done eating, put the foods away. Put them away in the refrigerator or where they belong so that they're safe and they're not setting out getting too warm or making other people or you sick. All right? I hope you do take some time to think about food safety today. And if you've been reading Goldilocks stories or writing Goldilocks stories, let us know. And you can also look for books like this one that are other twisted tales. This one is called Goldilocks Returns. And she looks a little older than a little girl on that picture. So I wonder what that'll be about. That could be interesting. We'd like to hear from you. So thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful morning.